Welcome to another presentation in our series Rereading Revelation. We have reached presentation number 20, and we are pursuing Revelation's vision of healing and doing it as a retrieval project, that we believe that something has been lost from this book. The title today is 1,000 Years and Then. That is to say, what happens after the so-called 1,000 years in this book. We will start reading in Revelation chapter 20, and we read as follows. Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven, holding in his hand the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain. So here is action at last. This is an illustration by Martin Lennart, a German artist. Maybe it's a little indistinct, the illuminated part, but there is an angel there. There is an angelic figure. There is a key here. There is a chain here. And someone is being chained there. And we read on. He seized the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years, and threw him into the pit, and locked and sealed it over him, so that he would deceive the nations no more until the 1,000 years were ended. So here we are imagining, and I have done this topic before, that this is an action that will meet with hearty approval. I have yet to find anyone who objected. This is a good idea to lock up this individual and see if you can bring his activity to an end. He is, after all, the ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan, and he has a pretty bad-looking CV, you might say. So this is good. And then we read this verse, that after the 1,000 years, it says, after that he must be released for a little while. And the word is translated correctly. He must be released. And our reaction is likely to be something like this. And a question like this one. If he can be bound now, why wasn't he bound earlier? Good thing now. Would have been even better if it had happened sooner. And then, of course, this question, why must he be released? What's the necessity? We are reading a text that is using figurative language, symbolic language, so we have to do some calibration here as to meaning. But we have some quite serious problems on our hands in this text. So there has been some scrambling for answers, and I have a quotation here from R.H. Charles. I have referred to him earlier. He wrote a 2-volume commentary on the book of Revelation 100 years ago. He finished it in 1920, and he is a very astute interpreter, and his commentary have had a longer shelf life, a longer life than is usual for commentaries. This is what Charles says. John died when he had completed 1:20 to verse 3 of his work. So when he gets to chapter 20, he died. And the materials for its completion, which were for the most part ready in a series of independent documents, were put together by a faithful but unintelligent disciple in the order which he thought right. So something happens to the text, Charles thinks, when we get to Revelation 20, that suggests that the author somehow didn't, maybe he died. So here he is, a premature death, rest in peace, John the beloved disciple, who we have said is the likely author of this book. That is a pretty bold hypothesis. that is audacious, to put it mildly, and to do it in such detail and to make a postulate like that without other evidence than that this is a challenging text. Here is another one, looking for answers. Again, on a defective text. Here is a German interpreter, and there is another one just like him, a more recent one, who says about the same. After the capture of the beast in chapter 19, the seer has lost interest in the story. He just got tired, and he couldn't do it anymore, and this story becomes incoherent. Or this one. This is by a popular William Barclay, whose commentaries on Revelation reached a wide audience. Here is our key. The origin of this doctrine is not specifically Christian, but is to be found in certain Jewish beliefs about the Messianic age, which were common after 100 BC. So maybe this is too strong a thing here. This is a fake doctor, but there is a slight hint here that we are watching a type of theological malpractice here, a doctrine not Christian, a kind of alien element in the story. And here is another one, and then we will move on. And this person, he is also a very revered commentator. John found this event prophesied in Ezekiel 38 to 39, and prophecies must have their fulfillment. So he is just following a script, he is following it rigidly, and there is a slight hint here that this is not theologically or intellectually meaningful. So what scholars say and what we say for once seem to match very well. I hear scholars say what most lay readers also tend to say in response to this turn of events in Revelation. But why is Satan merely bound? And why is he ever to be loosed again? One person says. And then this one. Why could he not have been liquidated from the beginning? The person who says this is, his name is Sweet, and I have met him at the University of St. Andrews, and he was very sweet. And his question is reasonable, isn't it? And this one, who is also someone I have met, and I have recommended one of his books in print, why not simply destroy Satan at the beginning of the 1,000-year period? I mean, you lock him up, and then you just, go for it and eliminate him. Wouldn't that be reasonable? And then this one here, the question occurs to every reader of this text. Once Satan is bound and the earth enjoys a millennium of undemonized celebration, why must he be released again? Well, not everything in that statement is equally coherent, because maybe the world does not enjoy a millennium of celebration. But the question about his release is on everyone's mind. And this one is pretty succinct. What's the point? So here we have some. Here is one, when people do get to the point of saying what is the point. Here is another one by the same one, one of the people quoted earlier. He says that evil must be magnified to its fullest before being destroyed forever. In order to participate in this mythical scene, the devil must be released to engage in his characteristic activity of deceiving the nations. There isn't much theology invested in that statement. It is really that there is a kind of choreography, a kind of pyrotechnics that needs to happen at the end when Satan is destroyed. So don't think that this is it. When I came to the University of St. Andrews to write my dissertation on the book of Revelation, I faced one major obstacle, that my advisors, and just reflecting the sort of consensus that existed about the book, and that consensus was that the book of Revelation is very interested in the Roman Empire and very critical of the Roman Empire, and Satan is not an important character. He is a sort of amplifying presence, but he is not a primary figure in the story. And I did not share that view, I did not share that sentiment, and so I had to do some maneuvering to see if I could lift up, sort of raise the prestige of Satan in the story of Revelation. And in chapter 20, that seems quite doable. So here is what slightly modified what I said in one of my early chapters. The conspicuous binding, 1,000-year imprisonment, and subsequent release of Satan, described toward the end of Revelation, establishes Satan as an important character in the narrative and allots to him a central role in the story. So you cannot say everything is about the Roman Empire, because whatever figures we thought represented the Roman Empire are by now off the stage. There is nothing left either of this imperial power or church power or whatever power you wish to postulate. Now he is alone on the stage. And then number 2, Satan is made to stand alone on stage at the end of Revelation's narrative, placing him in a category that is distinct from humans. So he has his own standing here. Number 3, the ending of Revelation is also the ending of the Bible and the climax of prophecy, as Richard Bauckham has put it. On this logic, the ending of the story is likely to be related to the beginning, and I plan to make a significant investment in that connection, the likelihood that the beginning of the story of the Bible and the ending are closely linked. Well, we are going to read on now in chapter 20. Then I saw thrones, and those seated on them were given authority to judge. I also saw those who had been beheaded for the testimony of Jesus that reveals the word of God. They had not worshipped the beast or its image, and had not received its mark on their foreheads or their hands. They came to life and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. And this is a painter, Signoretti, in the late 15th century, who has painted a resurrection scene here. All kinds of bodies are reappearing from the earth in a very evocative scene. Reading on, verses 5 and 6, and the rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy are those who share in the first resurrection. Over these, the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, and they will reign with him 1,000 years. Here is another resurrection scene. This is Jesus in the middle here, and these are figures coming out from their tombs. And this one I have seen in person. It is found near the wall in Istanbul, in ancient Istanbul, from a church that is now a mosque. But it is really one of the most uplifting paintings of resurrection that I have seen anywhere. Okay, one more verse, and then we will retreat to think these matters through. So, when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison. In verse 3, he must be released. In verse 7, he will be released. And that's what we have to grapple with. So just to do a little bit of a summary here about the 1,000 years, we read that Satan is bound for 1,000 years. The phrase 1,000 years is repeated 6 times. Satan bound until the 1,000 years ended. Resurrected victims of violence reign with Christ 1,000 years. The rest are not resurrected until the 1,000 years were ended. Resurrected, those people reign with him for 1,000 years, the same thing, that's repeated almost similar twice. And then Satan is released when the 1,000 years are ended. So that is also sort of repeating the same things and driving some points home. So what are we to do with this, this kind of thing, and the meaning of the 1,000 years, and what happens where, and what is going on? And I would like to do a little sort of broader field of vision here, and look at some texts in the Gospel of John and also in Revelation. This would be meaningful to do, even if we did not say that these books have the same author. But it's even more meaningful thinking that they do belong to to the same thought world. So here is Jesus talking to Nathanael in the Gospel of John, and saying some nice things to Nathanael, and Nathanael saying some nice things to Jesus. And then Jesus ends the conversation by saying, "Very truly, I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." This means there is traffic between heaven and earth. And this plays off the text in the Old Testament about Jacob's ladder and angels going up and down in his dream. So here something is coming to fulfillment in the relation to Jesus. Then Jesus will say in chapter 3, verse 13, "No one has ascended into heaven but he who descended from heaven, even the Son of Man." The notion of descent and ascent, going down, going up and down, connecting heaven and earth to make it into sort of one reality. Here is a later one in chapter 16, verse 28. "I came from the Father and have come into the world. Again, I am leaving the world and I'm going to the Father." Coming and going. Going down, going up, and so on. And then this one that I memorized many, many years ago when I was a child, I think. "Do not let your hearts be troubled. I go to prepare a place for you. I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, you may be. There you may be also." So here he came down from heaven, he goes back to heaven, he comes back to earth, and then after here this one, when he goes away and comes back, where will we go then? The notion that where I am, there you may be also suggests that we will go where he is. The redeemed will go to heaven. That seems to be the connotation there. And then we read in Revelation something that is at least a significant addendum to the story. We read this: "I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'See, the tabernacle of God is with human beings. He will dwell with them. They will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them.'" We said early in the story, or we observed early in the story, that God is defined in the Bible as the God who is with someone. He is with someone. He is not just the God who exists. And here we have 3 examples of the God who is with someone in the end of the story. He is with human beings. He is with them. And God himself will be with them. But where are we now? Here, the redeemed are with God, ostensibly in heaven. Here, the redeemed are with God on earth, unmistakably on earth. The end of the journey in the book of Revelation is not heaven, it is earth. So here the redeemed seem to go with God, to go to heaven to be with God there. Here God descends from heaven to be with human beings here. That's quite different. and this, by the witness of Revelation, then just to take this point home. So Revelation is what should I say? There is no ambiguity in Revelation's affirmation that eternity, if I may put it that way, will be spent on earth. Revelation is the only book in the New Testament to make that clear. Other books might infer it somewhat, but Revelation makes it very clear. Actually, in Revelation, it's quite tenuous even to say that the redeemed go to heaven at all. It is much more easy to say that earth is the place, earth is the address at the end of the story. But there are some hints in the book that the redeemed at some point must have gone to heaven. And these are some of the verses for that. I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. That text is meaningful only if the New Jerusalem is a city of people. The bride must be people. And here another text like it, let us rejoice and exult and give him the glory, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready. Bride here, bride there, bride as people, and people made ready for this wedding. So here the redeemed as the New Jerusalem, as the bride, come down from heaven, even without saying explicitly that they went there in the first place. We're going to put the pieces together in a moment. One more text that could be a text saying, well, they did go to heaven, for sure, that it is in Revelation. In chapter 11, the 2 witnesses that are killed in that chapter, after the 3.5 days, the breath of life from God entered the 2 witnesses, and they stood on their feet, and those who saw them were terrified. They heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, to the 2 witnesses, "Come up here." And they went to heaven in a cloud while their enemies watched them. So here the witnesses are going to heaven, but you could say that's figurative. But anyway, there is a movement to heaven of the redeemed. In the larger witness of the New Testament, here is a text that has also been a significant text in my story even from I was a child. I heard this text read many times in my childhood. This is the Apostle Paul writing in his first letter in the oldest document of the New Testament, written maybe around the year 49 in the first century, so within 20 years of Jesus' ascent to heaven, as the story goes in the New Testament. We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about those who have died, so that you may not grieve as others who have no hope. For since we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so, through Jesus, God will bring with him those who have died. So it's the promise of resurrection here. For this we declare to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive, who are left until the coming of the Lord, will by no means precede those who have died. For the Lord himself, with a cry of command, with the archangel's call, and with the sound of God's trumpet, there is a trumpet, will descend from heaven, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up in the clouds, together with them to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will be with the Lord forever. And this text is usually taken to mean second coming of Christ, the redeemed go to heaven. But we have that a corrective in Revelation that we have looked at already, and we are now, after this detour, going to go back to chapter 20 in Revelation and the 1,000 years. God's whereabouts in John, and I put John in inverted commas here because I am putting together the Gospel of John and the book of Revelation. Let's say that Jesus is first in heaven, and then he comes to earth. It's the first coming of Jesus. Then he goes back to heaven. It's very much, that is the impression in the Gospel of John. Then he comes back to earth. It's the second coming of Jesus. And lo and behold, he goes back to heaven. This is how I envision the 1,000 years, because he comes back here and you have what Revelation calls the first resurrection. What happens after that? That is to say, at the beginning of the 1,000 years. Well, that must be the time when the redeemed go to heaven. And then, after the 1,000 years, there is the story of the New Jerusalem, and we return to earth, and that is the end of the story. Now, in Revelation chapter 20, and there is a point to all of this that isn't just to sort of outline geography and location and this place and that place. So the 1,000 years before and after. Here, before, Satan is bound at what is, and there is where the first resurrection happens, where the redeemed ostensibly go to heaven. Then we read that there is a second resurrection, or there is a second death, and that happens after the 1,000 years. And so what is happening in the interim, that is the issue. So the redeemed are now in heaven. What's the point? What is going on earth? Satan is ostensibly bound on earth. So just to help our imagination and to see the kind of world that is depicted in Revelation 20 about the 1,000 years and earthly, the state of the earth, then maybe this picture by Anselm Kiefer could work, black flakes. And this is a way of representing the world. He is not trying to describe the world of the in the millennial earth, but he is describing a way of seeing reality and seeing how grief has been accumulating in the world. Someone had asked a child, "What do you see in this picture?" And she had said, "I see death." And then if someone asks me what I see, I will say, I see the millennium. I see the earth in the 1,000 years. And there is an Old Testament, or there are Old Testament antecedents for such a depiction of the earth. An earth that was originally created and that in the course of time gets decreated, as it were. First, here is in Isaiah, in the apocalyptic section of Isaiah, the earth shall be utterly laid waste and utterly despoiled, for the Lord has spoken this word. The earth dries up and withers. The world languishes and withers. The heavens languish together with the earth. A curse devours the earth, and few people are left. And then an even stronger one here in Jeremiah This is where you see a scene of decreation, as though you walk backwards in the creation story from day 6 to day 5 to day 4 to day 3. I looked on the earth, and lo, it was waste and void, and to the heavens, and they had no light. I looked to the mountains, and lo, they were quaking, and all the hills moved to and fro. I looked, and lo, there was no one at all, and all the birds of the air had fled. That's an earth that goes desolate, that sort of comes back to its origin. It will be recreated, but there is a period of earthly desolation that fits the period described in Revelation as the 1,000 years. So to add this up, this is how it looks to me, or this is how the evidence seems to add up. Key Old Testament and New Testament texts paint a picture of the millennial earth not as a golden age, but as a wasteland. In such a scenario, the binding and release of Satan, that seems so muscular, in such a scenario, Satan is not bound coercively. He is simply bound by force of circumstances. The redeemed are in heaven. Those not redeemed are not resurrected, but will be after the 1,000 years. The first resurrection refers to the resurrection of believers only. And Satan's release and the second resurrection are parallel events, and the latter is the premise of the former. We are at the end of this presentation, but we are not done with the meaning of the binding and release of Satan. We have some more work to do, but I will repeat the text as we close. After that, he must be released for a little while. When the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison. What then?